Hello, and welcome back to the dangerous Musashino City. The infamous Lil Slugger terrorizes residents with his golden baseball bat. His first victim, Tsukiko Sagi, is suspected of setting up the attacks. Detectives Akari and Maniwa start investigating, but the mystery goes much deeper than they'd thought. Can the detectives uncover the truth behind Lil Slugger before the town succumbs to fear? Make sure to subscribe and like for more. As everyone is busy on their phones, an old man writes a long and complicated math equation with chalk on the pavement of a hospital parking lot under the sun. As he finishes, he stops and looks up at a girl on a bus in shock. The woman, Tsukiko Sagi, notices him, but the bus starts moving again. At M&F Incorporated, a company that designs mascots, Tsukiko tries to create a new character, but remarks that she isn't able to, and her boss, Hadamura, urges her to create a follow-up to her successful design, Muromi, a cute pink dog. Walking home alone, Tsukiko talks to her stuffed toy, Muromi, and quickly starts walking after running into a weird old woman. Turning around, she suddenly realizes the woman is gone. In the dark, Tsukiko feels weird and starts running until she falls in a parking lot, scattering her belongings. As she reaches for a design under a car, she accidentally scrapes her arm and begins to cry before suddenly getting attacked. At M&F, Hadamura says he's worried about Tsukiko over the phone before a news broadcast reports that Tsukiko has been attacked. Detectives Keiichi Akari and Mitsuhiro Maniwa question Tsukiko in the hospital. Akari tries to be harsh about it, but Maniwa calmly tries to get details from her. So she sketches her attacker, a middle school boy with a red hat and a bent golden bat. In the hospital lobby, an old man is unconscious in a wheelchair as his son argues with Akio Kawazu, a tabloid reporter who hit the old man with his car. Kawazu, not having the money for hospital bills, promises to pay them back from his next article and tricks a nurse into revealing the detective's recent visit to room 510. Alert scumbag detected. Akari and Maniwa discuss the case in their car, and Maniwa says he's Tsukiko strange. But Akari suspects she may have made up the story, so they bet on what the truth is about the case. Kawazu researches Tsukiko, visiting a public computer and her workplace as the media publicizes the suspect's description, calling him Lil Slugger. The detective's inquiry leads to a fan mentioning a small-looking homeless woman, so they go find her tent, but encounter Kawazu instead, who takes a paper from under a car and leaves. At her apartment, number 510, Tsukiko reads message board posts that accuse her of lying, so Muromi comforts her. On her way to work, Kawazu questions her using a drawing he found, so she frighteningly agrees to an interview. At a restaurant, he praises her designs and asks about the incidents, but some kids passing by on roller skates trigger her memory of golden inline skates. Kawazu visits her apartment and receives a call from the old man's son demanding money before Lil Slugger suddenly attacks him and skates away. Akari and Maniwa read newspapers about a second attack from Lil Slugger and wins his bet, telling Akari that he's craving some Korean barbecue. A young boy named Yuichi Tera, called Iki, rides his golden inline skates past some girls who excitedly call him Ichi. He cheerily remarks that he's called Ichi because he's number one in everything, from school to sports to popularity, and as he's skating, he jumps over some steps in front of a billboard. Later, Ichi heads to school, practicing his smile, but is shocked to see that the other students are ignoring him. Confused, he finds a note in his locker angrily stating that he's Lil Slugger. Bit of a wild assumption if you ask me. After hearing a news report about Kawazu being attacked by Lil Slugger and the description of the attacker, Ichi realizes he completely fits the description. He blames another student, Shogo Yoshiyama, who is good at school, bad at sports because he is overweight, but since Oshi's running for student council president against Ichi, the others think Ichi's targeting him on purpose. They all start ignoring Ichi, who slowly gets angrier and angrier and corners Oshi alone, accusing him of spreading fake rumors about him. He slowly starts daydreaming about Lil Slugger attacking Oshi before the real Lil Slugger suddenly attacks Oshi, and Ichi chases after him, leaving Oshi hurt. In Tsukiko's apartment, she watches a news report about Oshi getting attacked and realizes she's run into Lil Slugger before. Maromi reassures her and says it's all her imagination. At the hospital, Akari and Maniwa visit Ushi, while the old man from before writes another equation. Ichi isolates himself, watching old videos, and abruptly snaps. He starts seeing distorted images of classmates and detectives, accusing him of being Lil Slugger. Later, the real Lil Slugger suddenly appears and attacks him with a bat. Harumi Chano, a woman with dissociative identity disorder, struggles against her other identity, Maria, who is a prostitute. There are two wolves inside her. The two personalities leave messages for each other on the answering machine, and Harumi becomes increasingly desperate when a colleague at Jia University, where she works as a research assistant, proposes to her. She accepts the proposal but is terrified that he might find out about Maria, so she tries to throw away Maria's work clothes, but her personality shifts to Maria as she arrives at the dump, and she takes the clothes back to their apartment. Her psychiatrist insists that she must tell her fiancé about her condition, and Harumi also tutors Yuchi, who, during a visit to him in the hospital, remarks that she needs a doctor more than he does. Eventually, her personalities start to battle each other before Lil Slugger unexpectedly attacks her. Masami Harukawa is a short, low-level police officer who, despite claiming to be a family man, accepts bribes in the form of cash and women from a local Yakuza group. His favorite prostitute is Maria, and he even buys a house for his family using this money. However, he pushes the group too far, and they send their boss, Mekab, to beat him up. Mekab tells Masami that since the leader of the local group is his friend, he should have no objection to paying a large amount of money like all the other friends do. He reminds Masami that his friend gave him money to build his house, and that if Masami is not his friend, his house might have to be burnt down. Desperate, Masami puts on some dark clothes and a ski mask and starts robbing helpless local families. Wow, this show is just filled with scumbags. Mekab gives him stimulants for courage, and Masami attacks a family whose daughter walks in. Later, as he's slowly walking alone on a deserted road, he desperately cries out for help, begging someone to stop him. Suddenly, he is attacked by Lil Slugger. However, unlike other victims, he doesn't fall unconscious and instead chases after his attacker, arresting Lil Slugger, who later waits to be interrogated by Hikari and Maniwa. Hikari and Maniwa interrogate the boy known as Lil Slugger, who turns out to be an 8th grade student named Makoto Kazuka. Kazuka confesses to the attacks, but he says he believes the world around him is a medieval fantasy-style role-playing game. He thinks that by attacking people, he is freeing them from a villain named Goma, who has possessed them. Kazuka recounts the series of attacks from his game-based perspective, and Akari and Maniwa follow along. Maniwa, taking an insider's view, gets particularly immersed in Kazuka's role-playing, and different characters appear in different guises. Kawazu as a stepped-on frog, Kazuka as a warrior, and Maria as an evil butterfly woman. What a wild imagination. Maniwa cleverly pretends to be a minstrel tasked with recording all the heroic details, and the detectives notice that the details of his story match all the attacks except for the case of Tsukiko. However, Kazuka directs the detectives to someone he believes can help him advance the game, and who the detectives think might be an important witness to the initial attack. Hikari and Maniwa question the old lady who witnessed the incident involving Tsukiko and uncover what really happened that night. After Hikari, frustrated by how vague the woman's answers are, shouts at her, so she admits that no one was there but Tsukiko during the attack. The detectives meet Tsukiko with evidence, a bent pipe found near the scene, which she used on herself, but Tsukiko faints upon hearing them. Meanwhile, Teiko, a runaway teenager, wanders through the stormy city wanting to forget her past. Her father, Masami, repeatedly calls her phone, but she always answers coldly, declaring that she'll destroy everything. Twitter users are gonna go, I can fix her. Teiko, who once deeply loved her father, discovers sensitive photos of herself undressing in the computer's recycle bin after her family moves into the house Masami built. Horrified, she angrily smashes the furniture and finds a hidden camera behind a bookshelf. As she's despairingly walking in the storm, She says she wants to become empty before Lil Slugger suddenly knocks her out. She wakes up in the hospital with her father beside her, and he explains that their house was destroyed by the storm, telling her that her wish to destroy everything has come true. After Teiko is attacked while both Tsukiko and Kazuka have alibis, Maniwa wonders if there's another Lil Slugger and looks for connections between the victims to identify who might be next. Kazuka continues to say he's a holy warrior, with Akari angrily telling him the first attack was an act and that he jumped on a bandwagon. Kazuka admits he only attacked Ushi and Masami as Maniwa becomes more deeply involved, discovering that nearly all the victims felt cornered and pressured by their lives and seemed relieved after being attacked, goes to show just how happy an average Birmingham resident is. Maniwa finds it odd that Ushi was the only victim without any worries, so Akari advises him to take some time off. They suddenly find out that Kazuka has died in his cell before another Lil Slugger appears and mysteriously escapes through the police station's walls. The three members of an internet suicide pact meet for the first time, wanting to come up with ways to end their lives but hoping to find Lil Slugger. The two older members, an old man named Fuyubachi and a young man named Zebra, are shocked to discover the third member, Kamo, is actually a little girl. Despite repeatedly trying to abandon her, she keeps finding them and discovers them in an abandoned house trying to incinerate themselves with carbon monoxide, but the house is suddenly destroyed. Next, they try to jump in front of a subway train, but another man throws himself in front of the train first, after which Zebra sees the spirit of the man walk away. Finally, they try hanging themselves from a tree on a mountainside, but the branch snaps, and they both fall down a slope and get separated from Kamo, revealing that Zebra's locket contains pictures of him with another man. They decide to go back for Kamo, fearing she will die if left alone in the forest. Later, the three visit a bathhouse, where it is revealed that Kazuka was a member of their suicide pact. They try to sleep until they see the figure of Lil Slugger. Delighted, Kamo and Zebra run at him with open arms, with Fuyubachi trailing behind them, but a terrified Lil Slugger hurriedly escapes the building. Later, Fuyubachi notices that the three of them do not have any shadows, say WHAT. While singing and skipping hand in hand, they stop to pose behind a group of girls getting their picture taken by another girl with a digital camera. When the girls check the photo, they are shocked and frightened by what they see. Four housewives gather to share stories about Lil Slugger. The first recounts a tale of a teenage boy struggling to study for his math exam. During the exam, he sneezes out a math equation and rushes to the toilet, where streams of equations begin pouring out with each sneeze. Someone repeatedly keeps knocking on the door, and he hurriedly ignores them until he sees Lil Slugger looking down at him. A teacher then finds a sea of equations on the floor. A second story is about a young wife who is stuck at home with her demanding mother-in-law. The wife tries to attack her mother-in-law when there is a knock on the door, so both rush towards it, thinking it is the husband, but instead, Lil Slugger is there and knocks out the mother-in-law. Hamohara tells them a story about a doctor whose nurses botch an in vitro fertilization, resulting in a baby who is unrelated to both parents. When the mother-to-be complains of abdominal pain, an ultrasound reveals the fetus as a little Lil Slugger. The other housewives mock her story for being unbelievable, and later, Kamohara returns home to find her husband, a script editor, bleeding from a head wound. When he claims Lil Slugger attacked him, Kamohara happily asks to know more about it. Japanese housewives do not have any chill. ALL, the production team of Mellow Moromi, an anime featuring Tsukiko's famous character, struggles to meet the deadline, so Naoyuki Saruta, the production coordinator and often the source of their issues, is racing through traffic to deliver the first episode to the broadcasting network. Throughout his journey, Saruta keeps nodding off. He repeatedly wakes up to visions of Lil Slugger chasing him before suddenly disappearing. His dreams are about the anime's production process and the gradual murder of the entire crew. Eventually, Lil Slugger appears in his car, and Saruta's beaten body is discovered outside the TV network's building. Shocked, the network staff hurriedly takes the tape from his hand and heads inside to air it. Average BBC employee behavior. When Lil Slugger goes after Misea Akari, the wife of Detective Ikari, She asks him about the nature of humans and the harm he has caused. She reveals that she declined a life-saving medical treatment because her husband, now working as a security guard, couldn't afford it, and recounts how her life transformed after meeting Akari, who was supportive even after they discovered she couldn't have children. Over time, she feared that his dedication to work was an excuse to avoid her, and as she keeps going, Lil Slugger grows larger. But each time she dismisses these thoughts as unreasonable, he shrinks back down. He swells again, ready to attack her, but she laughs, telling him that humans are stronger than he thinks and that his existence is useless since his attacks only provide false salvation. Lil Slugger screams and vanishes, along with everything around him, after which decides to undergo the operation. Meanwhile, former Detective Akari finishes a construction shift and goes straight to his security job, without returning home where he's talking with a co-worker, who turns out to be the first person he arrested. That must have been an awkward interaction. The man tells him that he's an honest member of society now, so Akari shares how he always wanted to catch simple burglars, not psychological criminals. He's suddenly transported to a fantasy world reflecting his wish, while Manuel looks for Akari and Misa, despairingly realizes he hasn't come home. Manuel confronts Lil Slugger and researches his origins. He first visits the old man at the hospital who, just before dying, tells Manuel to dance with the rabbit. Misa informs Manuel that Moromi and Lil Slugger are the same being, and during an interview about how Moromi was created, Tsukiko's early sketches reveal an image of Lil Slugger. Remembering the old man's advice, Manuel goes to a doll maker's shop and finds dolls of all the Lil Slugger's victims. The dolls communicate with Manuel and say they want to defeat Lil Slugger. They connect him to an AR link where he finds out about Tsukiko's past and discovers a case from 10 years earlier when a 12-year-old Tsukiko was attacked by a figure on rollerblades with a golden bat. Manuel visits Tsukiko's father and finds a golden bat in their shed. Realizing the truth, he calls Tsukiko and says her father is telling to never be afraid, but Moromi cuts the phone line. That's one hell of a weird doll, not gonna lie. Manuel then battles a giant, monstrous Lil Slugger with the original bat, and after their fight ends in a stalemate, Tsukiko and Moromi vanish into a cartoon world, erasing all traces of Moromi from the human world. Tokyo lies in ruins, covered by a black mass formed by the rampaging Lil Slugger. Manuel contacts the police chief through a screen in the cartoon world explaining what he knows, but Akari destroys the screen with a rock. Moromi transforms into a real dog, and Tsukiko reverts to her 12-year-old self, calling Akari Dad. Akari thinks about how he always wanted a daughter, but when Misei appears, he remembers telling her that people shouldn't create fantasy worlds to escape reality. Using the original bat, Akari shatters the cartoon world, revealing a devastated Tokyo and a sea of Moromi toys. Manuel tells Akari the truth about Lil Slugger, revealing that Moromi was based on a real puppy Tsukiko had as a child, but the puppy was killed in traffic when a painful menstrual cramp caused Tsukiko to drop its leash, a painful loakt. Afraid of her strict father's punishment, Tsukiko made up a story about Lil Slugger and blamed him for the accident. The black mass chases Moromi, Tsukiko, and Akari into the subway, where they are eventually flooded with it. As she sinks, Tsukiko has a flashback to the original incident, comforting her younger self and accepting responsibility for Moromi's death, which stops the black mass and the Lil Slugger attacks. 2 years later, Tokyo has recovered. Tsukiko, now an office worker, carelessly watches a commercial for a new popular mascot character. Akari remains a security guard. Kawazu continues his work as a reporter, and Manuel, his hair now completely white, slowly writes the same complex equation, chalk on the street, that the old man once did. He suddenly stops writing and gasps in shock after looking up. Thanks for joining us on today's hunt for Lil Slugger. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, subscribe for more, and hit the bell to stay updated. Until next time, stay curious and keep away from dark and deserted streets if you don't want to get attacked in the night.